so we do have, we've, oh my goodness, we have somebody here from Southern California. I'm sure you saw that.
Welcome.
Okay. Um, okay. So welcome everyone. And I'm really happy that you're able to join us this evening. And before we do get started, I do want to remind you that we are in a webinar and we are also recording today's session. My name is Mary. I'm your host from AARP New Hampshire, and I'm also an AARP New Hampshire lead volunteer. We do want to hear from you this evening, so if you have a question or you want to make a comment, please use the chat box, which can be accessed by clicking the chat button at the bottom of your screen. At AARP New Hampshire, we are focused on the health, the financial security, and the social connections that are critical to the well-being of the 50 plus in the Granite State. We carry out our work through targeted advocacy at the state and federal levels, compelling engagements and compelling engagements of the 50 plus community statewide. And we also serve as a trusted resource for information for our members and the public. If you do want to find out more information on saving and planning, please visit www.aarp.org/money, and I will put that link in the chat. And I also will put another link in the chat because this is being recorded for our AARP New Hampshire YouTube channel. The recording will be posted within a couple of days, so if you want to review what has been said tonight, please feel free to access that recording. So our presentation tonight is going to be a very important discussion about planning for your financial and educational futures. Our host tonight is Shelby Musio from Granite Edvance, and in her role as Director of Partnerships, Shelby helps nurture the communities that support students, creating and strengthening partnerships across different organizations. Tonight, she's going to share her knowledge and her passion with us to help ensure that you and those that you care for can have a safe and enriched future. I want to thank you for supporting community members with AARP New Hampshire Shelby, and we're grateful that you're able to take some time to join us and give us your expertise tonight. And I will now hand the presentation over to you, Shelby.
All right, Mary, thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm so pleased to be with all of you here this evening, or for those of you in California this afternoon, I suppose. I'll go ahead and share my screen so that you all can see the slides that I have prepared for this evening. If you cannot see those, please let me know in the chat. And as Mary mentioned, my name is Shelby Muso, and I'm here today with Granite Edvance. The QR code that you see on the screen here is for you to sign in if you would like to receive more information about Granite Edvance or be added to our mailing list, but it's certainly not necessary. And I see, there we go. All right. And I'll start today by telling you all a little bit about who we are at Granite Edvance, and then we'll dive into the meat of the presentation about how to support the current or future college student in your life. So again, thank you all for being here and for letting me share this space with you, and let's get into it. So, Granite Advance is a New Hampshire-based nonprofit organization. We've been around for about 60 years, and our mission is to support students and families as they navigate their education and career goals. We do that by providing free career and higher education counseling, as well as resources and a suite of funding support options, including loans, grants, and scholarships. I am so thrilled that there are folks on this call from outside of New Hampshire. We are New Hampshire based. I'll talk more about this later, but I will share now that our loans and our loan counseling is available in all 50 states. And that brings me to our business model and how we are able to do all of the things that we do. So we provide these free services like this presentation that we're doing right now. We provide one-on-one counseling and guidance. We have free resources, scholarships, and grants that we offer to the local community. Folks are then made aware of our services and our expertise and learn how we can help them on their planning journey. And for those folks who are on that financial aid journey and realize that they are in need of a student loan, they learn about their ability to apply for our products. And the revenue from those products is then reinvested into New Hampshire and all of the free services that we are able to provide. So we're really proud to do this work and to be able to help students and families throughout the entire life cycle of their college and career planning journey. And for those of you who are in New Hampshire, I would love to share that our signature event, Destination College, which is for high school juniors and their families, is coming up at the end of March, and registration is open now. This is a great way to kick off that college planning process with a day full of speakers and workshops and a college and resource fair where we're expecting over 60 tables of different schools from around the country and local resources. Registration is free. We welcome all juniors and their families. You can register by scanning that QR code or go to our website at graniteadvance.org. So this evening, we're going to be talking about how you can support college students in your life financially and otherwise. But before we get into what your role can be, I thought it would be helpful to provide some basic information about how financial aid works. Now, before I jump into this, I will say that all of the information that I'm presenting this evening is current as of today's date to the best of our ability. Financial aid sometimes changes, programs change, information changes, so keep checking back on how all of these programs work. But we're excited to share, kind of break down some of these complicated terms and processes so that we can all learn together. So I know this might sound basic, but let's start with what is financial aid and a definition. So financial aid is anything that helps a student pay for their education. And the goal of financial aid is to help students pay for college. So it's really as simple and as broad as that. Financial aid is achieved by an entity evaluating a family's ability to cover educational costs. And then based on that evaluation, resources are distributed in what aims to be an equitable manner, and entities provide a balance of gift aid and self-help aid when it is available. So all of this kind of wrapped up together is the larger term that we refer to as financial aid. And we like to think of financial aid as falling into two separate groups. So first we have gift aid, and this would be financial aid that is given with kind of no strings attached, that it is given as a gift and students do not have to do additional work for it after it is given, or it is not given with the need to repay. I will say in some cases, scholarships or grants will have a GPA requirement to maintain the scholarship and things like that. But for the most part, that's how it all works. Scholarships are merit-based. So this is aid that a student earns or that they do something to be awarded this type of aid. We see these in the form of academic scholarships or athletic scholarships. Maybe it's based on an audition if the student is an artist. Those types of scholarships can come from the institution of higher education, so the college or university, or they can also come from private entities, so a private scholarship that students apply for separately. Those scholarships will require the student to seek out that opportunity and apply for them separately, whereas scholarships from the college can be offered automatically upon admission and with the offer of financial aid. Need-based gift aid is called grants. So the entity, federal government, or the institution determines what the student or family's ability to pay is and then awards them a grant based off of both that ability to pay and the resources available. And then we have self-help aid. So on the federal side, that's where federal student loans come in. And those are offered in two different forms, subsidized and unsubsidized. For a subsidized loan, the government is covering the interest while the student is in school. And an unsubsidized loan, the interest accumulates while the student is in school. That's the only difference. There are limits to how much a student can be offered for federal loans based on what year of school they are in. And there's also an overall limit. I'm not going to take too much time to go into the details of how federal student loans work, but that is one option of federal aid that we like to talk about as self-help aid because the student receives the funds to help them pay for their education, but then of course they have to repay the loans after they graduate. And then there's also work study, which is actually a formal federal aid program. A student is awarded the opportunity to earn work study, which really means that they are guaranteed a job on campus. The student needs to still apply for that job and follow up and do their hours and figure it out on their own. So there's a lot of self-help going on there that the student has to take initiative. I'll also add that if a student does not qualify for work study based on their application for financial aid, there are still opportunities for students to work on campus or off campus and earn funds, but it wouldn't be considered a part of a financial aid package. So, how do we determine who is eligible for what? That is done through two different forms. The first one, the main one, the big one that you're all going to want to know is the FAFSA, and that stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. The FAFSA is a free form that is hosted by the federal government on federalstudentaid.gov, and it opens every year on October 1st. Students or families fill out that form. They list the colleges where the student is applying, or if the student is already enrolled in school, they list the one college where the student is attending. The student or family member enters in their financial information, income, assets. The form walks you through exactly what's required. That information is processed, a number is generated that's called the Student Aid Index, or SAI, and that number is then sent to the colleges that are listed on the FAFSA. The college takes that information and calculates the financial aid that they are able to award based off of that number for need-based aid. There's another form that some schools want in addition to the FAFSA, and it's called the CSS profile. This is an application for financial aid that is used mostly by private colleges. It's used by about 200 schools around the country, and it's more comprehensive. There are more questions about the family's assets, and more people are typically involved in that process. It also takes a little bit longer to fill out the CSS profile. FAFSA is typically under an hour. CSS profile can take up to 3 hours. And for students who are in college, they must fill out these forms every year that they are enrolled. Now, bear in mind, some schools have their own financial aid forms, and the deadlines for when applying for financial aid is due does not always line up with admission. So a deadline for admission might be before the deadline for financial aid, or it might be after. Every school does it a little bit differently. So we really recommend keeping track of what each school needs when students are applying for the first time. And for those of you who are in New Hampshire, Granite Advance can assist with you filling out these forms. We actually have a one-on-one appointment available on our website that you can book in person or virtually to help you fill out the FAFSA step by step. Because the CSS profile is so long, we don't offer an appointment to help you fill it out, but we are always happy to answer questions, get on the phone, email, whatever it may be. And also for those of you not in New Hampshire, there are organizations like us in other states. So check out your local community-based organizations, your local nonprofits to see if there is support for this kind of work near you. So now let's talk about who's involved in this process. And when we talk about supporting the current or future college student in your life, this is where you might come into the picture if you are a biological or adoptive parent of a college student. So for parents and legal guardians, they may be required to be listed as a contributor on the FAFSA. Now be aware of this word. Contributor simply means that you are putting your information into the FAFSA. It does not actually mean that you are contributing to pay for the student's education. It does not obligate you to anything. Really misleading word. But it does not obligate you to contribute any funds toward the student's education. What it does mean, though, is for a dependent student, they must have a contributor on their FAFSA in order to complete the FAFSA, which we just learned is how we unlock all of those different financial aid options. So no FAFSA, then no need-based aid, no loans from the government, no student loans from the government, no work study. There are very specific rules around who is a dependent student and who is an independent student. An independent student is a student who is over 26 years old, who is married, who has a child or dependent of their own, who was in the foster care system or a ward of the court after the age of 13. And there's more, but they're very specific criteria. For our traditional students, most of them are going to be dependent students, which means most of them are going to need a contributor or two on their FAFSA. And here we see a flow chart for who goes on the FAFSA. So if the student's biological or adopted parents are married, or they aren't married but they live together, then we look to how do they file taxes, and that determines who goes on the FAFSA. So if they're married and they file taxes jointly, then only one parent needs a student aid account and needs to be listed as a contributor on their FAFSA. Otherwise, both parents. But it gets a little more complicated. If the student's biological or adoptive parents are divorced or separated, then we have another flowchart. And here's where we go from there. So if one parent provided more financial support over the last year, then it would be that parent. And then we go to, well, is that parent married? Did they remarry since the biological or adoptive parents of that child, the student, got separated or divorced? If both parents provided equal financial support down to the penny, then we look to which parent has the greater income or assets. And then for that parent, are they remarried? And then we go through the flow chart from there. This chart is also listed in our Financial Aid Insider, so don't feel like you have to memorize it now. And then just to kind of bring it all home of how the FAFSA works. So again, the student and if necessary, the contributor or contributors fill out the FAFSA. They send that information to the college. The financial aid office at the college reviews the FAFSA information, and after an admissions acceptance only, so only if you're admitted to the school, then the student receives an official financial aid offer. That offer will include everything that is available to the student from the federal government, so those unsubsidized or subsidized federal loans, work study, a grant like a Pell Grant is the most common one that we see. And it will also include what aid is available from that college. So that means that every offer letter that the student receives from different colleges is going to look different because every college is going to offer something different. So it's really important to compare them quite closely and understand what is the real net cost, net price for each school, and what does that mean for that student and that family. But throughout this whole process, families are definitely encouraged to ask questions, whether it's to FSA, which administers the FAFSA and federal student aid, or to the financial aid officers at the different colleges. That's what they're there for. They are in this work because they love helping students figure these things out. Even if you have a question about how the process works in general and not necessarily about that school, we work very closely with a lot of financial aid officers. And I like to tell especially students, they're just normal people doing their job. Don't be scared. So once we see that financial aid offer and we understand the total amount that the student is going to receive in financial aid, we compare that to what's called the cost of attendance, or COA. And the cost of attendance includes the formal cost of college, like tuition and fees, but also some of those indirect costs, like the projected cost for housing and the meal plan and books and supplies. The difference between the cost of attendance and the total financial aid offer, if there is a difference, is called the gap, the funding gap. And gap funding, where students still have some chunk of funds left over that is not covered by financial aid, and you say, well, what the heck am I supposed to do with that? That's where we start to talk about additional or outside private scholarships and private student loans. And speaking of scholarships, Granite Advance has got one, and this is for New Hampshire students. Last year, we awarded over $750,000 to New Hampshire residents, and those scholarships are available to students who are attending 2-year schools, 4-year schools, and eligible trade and certificate programs. We're really proud of this scholarship and really excited that we're able to support so many students in their educational journey to success. And applications are open now for our summer and fall term scholarships. Another great resource that we love to highlight for our New Hampshire families is the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. They offer a lot of funds for New Hampshire residents to attend school, also for 2- and 4-year programs. And we also encourage families to check out community supports. So look to your employer. Sometimes there's scholarship opportunities for employers, or for employees rather, or employee children, maybe clubs that you're involved in, like a Rotary or something like that. You know, it's definitely worth it to do the research and see what's out there. So I saw a couple notices in the chat. Let me just check that out real quick, make sure there's no questions. Okay, fabulous. So now let's talk about how you can support the college student in your life beyond the FAFSA. So if you're not a formal contributor, what are other ways that you can be involved? Or maybe if you are, even beyond that. So one of the ways that we see family members or loved ones contributing to a student's education from a financial standpoint is by helping to set up or contribute to savings plans. And there are a couple of different kinds of these savings plans. The first one is a 529 education savings plan. So these are savings accounts that can be set up by anyone for any beneficiary. So you don't have to have like a proven legal relationship with that person or anything like that. There are tax advantages to utilizing the funds from this account when they are used for eligible education costs. So typically that's something like tuition, fees, or books or supplies for your education. In New Hampshire, we have 2 different 529 plans. One is called the Unique Plan. The other is administered by Fidelity Advisors. The hyperlink that you'll see when you see these slides goes to the New Hampshire Treasury Department website, where they list the different plans that are available for New Hampshire residents. These are great for dependent students, which we talked about before, because they're actually considered a parent or guardian asset. And on the FAFSA, which is measuring student and parent assets count for less. So since a 529 plan is counted as a parent asset rather than a student asset, that means that the student could be eligible for more financial aid. So from a FAFSA perspective, it can be more helpful. And then we have UTMA and UGMA accounts, and that stands for Uniform Transfers to Minors Act or Uniform Gifts to Minors Act. And these are ways to transfer assets of any kind to minors rather than setting up a trust. These types of accounts are not limited to education costs. There are other eligibility criteria, but you're not going to be seeing the same advantages to using these funds for education like you would with a 529. But a pro that some folks see in this is that you can transfer additional types of assets rather than just money. You can transfer stocks, mutual funds in an UGMA. In an UTMA account, you can transfer real estate, securities, and again, all of this is able to be done to transfer these assets to a minor without establishing a trust. And because they are transferred to the minor in this scenario, they're considered student assets on the FAFSA. So again, that's going to be weighed more heavily than a parent asset. You'll see this little footer on the next few slides, but I will say out loud that we strongly recommend speaking to a financial advisor or a tax expert when considering any of these options because these are very individual options and they could have larger or unexpected implications for your individual financial situation, depending on how you set these up and what it looks like for you. Another way that we see loved ones supporting college students is with student loans. So we talked about how federal loans work. Now let's talk a little bit about private student loans. So there are lots of entities out there that offer private student loans, whether it's banks or folks that, do this primarily. I'm sure you've heard of some of the larger names that are out there, or there are nonprofit lenders like us, Granite Advance. To apply for these loans, most applications are going to ask for income, assets, and your credit score. So for many college students, that credit score can be tricky because they typically have not had a lot of time to build up their credit. So one way that we've seen family members offer support to college students is to co-sign on that private loan. Co-signing can increase access for that student to that loan and or potentially lower the interest rate for that student by providing that co-signature. Co-signing means that you are willing and able to make payments on that loan. And that's why the lender is then able to provide that lower interest rate or that larger amount for that student because you are saying that in the event that the student is unable or unwilling to pay, you will step in. So please carefully consider the terms and conditions of the loan, including if there is a co-signer release option. That means that after a certain amount of time or a certain number of payments, you will have the ability to release from that co-signer obligation, and the loan will move to be fully in the student's name and under that student's obligation. So we really recommend that you only co-sign a loan if you are ultimately willing and able to pay the loan, if the student is unable to, or if they just choose not to, because in either scenario, you're going to be obligated to cover that cost. And, this is the same kind of mindset that we would hope individuals take on in lending money to the individual yourself. So loans still need to be paid if the student leaves college or if they don't find a job or don't have a job that pays what they were hoping to upon graduation. None of those variables really matter when it comes to repayments. So it could be that you never pay a cent towards this loan, but do be aware that you might be obligated to pay all of it. Another opportunity is for some families, they offer, rather than co-signing, to assist in maybe a less formal way with loan repayment. So saying maybe, we'll provide a gift to the lender upon your graduation, or every month we'll help with the repayment amount. You can also make that gift directly to the student to help them with their repayment and say this is for that purpose, and it's really up to the student to follow through on that promise. These gifts can be occasional or they can be regular. Again, every month or every 6 months or really whatever works for you. And so this is something that we have seen with families that, sometimes a grandparent or whomever will offer to contribute maybe $50 a month toward your student loan repayment to help ease that burden upon graduation. So these options are personal and every family is different, but clear communication or even having something in writing, I know that sounds really stuffy and formal, but it can be really helpful because then it clarifies expectations on all accounts and helps the student plan ahead for what to expect. And again, please speak to a financial advisor or tax professional when considering any of these options, particularly that co-signing option. I'll go back to that for just a moment. Some advantages to co-signing is that you could feel really great about helping the student attend school, fund their education, helping them get a lower rate, and it's helping to build credit not only for you, but also for that student. By lending your credit to them in that way, they are building their own credit, which can help set them up for long-term financial stability and success. But on the other side of that, it could potentially put a strain on your relationship with that student if you are on different pages about exactly what that repayment structure is going to look like. And if they don't hold up their end of the bargain, your credit could be negatively impacted. And then we also like to think about, if your credit is tied up with this loan, how would that affect your financial freedom or your financial plans like retirement or other financing needs? It could be an impact. So pros and cons to this one. We see a lot of families do it, but again, it's really a very individual situation and speak to professionals about what's right for you. And then for families who are looking to support financially, but in a less formal way, there are lots of ways to help ease the burden. I mean, there are lots of expenses that come with going to college. So some families set up more informal agreements for support. And one way is to contribute in some manner toward that overall cost of attendance that we talked about before. There are a lot of indirect expenses that students are going to come up against throughout the year, whether it's books and materials or room and board, even if they have a problem with their computer and they need a new one, they need some supplies for their dorm, anything from something that they need, like a shower caddy to bring down the hall, to something to make it feel a little more like home, a little cozier. They want a fluffy pillow or something like that. Who knows? Whatever it is, any way that you can contribute to that cost of attendance is supporting that student's education. And then, of course, there are other ways to contribute to other living costs outside of indirect or direct educational expenses. Some money for the birthday or even a monthly contribution to help the student offset just the cost of living. Even $20 so that they can have a movie night out with their friends without having to worry about where that money's coming from can go a really long way to helping them feel a little more settled, a little more included, and a little less stressed. So when we think about financial contributions, it's really not about the amount. It's about it doesn't have to be about the amount. There are lots of ways to contribute, even with small amounts. So when we think about financial support, a few takeaways, I'll say it one more time, please speak to a professional about what the tax and financial implications are for any of these options for you. But we really recommend establishing clear expectations with the student about what this gift is going to look like, whether it's occasional, one-time, or recurring, what is the amount. Help the student with those clear expectations and clear communication by allowing them to make wise financial decisions in that they know exactly what is coming and when. Gifts given over a certain threshold may have tax implications, and so that's something else to consider. And again, another reason to put something in writing, even informally, is just to make sure that the funds that you're providing are going to where you're hoping they're going, right? Like if you give the student money for books and they spend it on something else, are you okay with that? And if not, then maybe is there another way that you can provide that support that is a little more formal and kind of makes sure that those funds are going where you're hoping to. So again, these options are very personal for you and for the student. You know what's going to work best for you, but speak to a professional. And now let's talk about some non-financial support. So if this whole time you're listening saying like, don't I'm not able or I don't want to do any of this. That's fine. There's lots of other ways that you can support the college student in your life that have nothing to do with sending them funds in any type of way. The college transition and being in school, especially away from home, can be really hard. Academically, socially, navigating early adulthood. Really, these are all things that students are all navigating, and showing your support during this time can really be helpful for them. So, a call every now and again, a text to say you're thinking about them. It's really fun to get mail in college. Maybe send a letter or a postcard just to let them know that you're thinking about them. Care packages are a huge hit. This does not have to be anything extravagant, maybe something homemade or something that reminds them of home, their favorite snack, or, something that is going to brighten their day. Really fun for them to receive that, especially if they are living far from home. There are lots of ways that college students need support outside of finances, and one of them, a big one, is transportation, especially if they are living really far from their campus. Offering to drop them off or pick them up from school directly, or if they need to take a train or a bus or a plane, offering that to drive them to the airport or whatever. That can be a huge help and a big stress lift, knowing that they have that transportation secured. I went to college really far from home, but I had an aunt and uncle who did not have children of their own and who I was very close to, who lived close by. And every year when it was time to pack up my dorm room, instead of having to lug all of my things all the way back home across the country, they would pick me up from school, help me put all my stuff in their car, and store it in their extra bedroom for me over the summer. I cannot tell you, I don't know what I would have done without that support. It would have been a huge headache and a real barrier to a smooth transition in and out of school every year. Think about sharing a keepsake. What's going to help them feel connected to you, feel connected to their home life, whether it's something they can keep on their person in their backpack, or maybe something they can hang up in their dorm room to look at every day, whatever it is, what's special to them. And really think about that. For every student, it's a little bit different, but what do they need? What would they benefit from? What would make them smile? And remember, any encouragement at all can go a long way. Just a simple, I'm proud of you. Woo! Very valuable to a stressed out student. So let's talk about some next steps and where do we go from here. So if you are interested in learning more about financial aid or how you can support a student financially, check out our Financial Aid Insider, which is available on our website, and talk to your financial advisor or tax expert. For our New Hampshire folks, we would love to hear from you. Call, email, make an appointment with us. Again, we offer that FAFSA filing support. We also can sit down and talk about just overall financial aid and what that looks like for you, for that student, the whole picture. And we help students and families review offer letters. So when you're in that period of admission and college decision time, having all of those offer letters in front of you can feel really overwhelming. How do you compare apples to apples? Well, we have an appointment for that too, so you can get that knowledgeable guidance of learning exactly what those different offer letters mean and how to make the best financial decision for you. And then, of course, we also offer our loan consultation and support, and this is available nationwide. We have our product called Edvest in You, which is available outside of New Hampshire. And for New Hampshire residents or students who are attending college in New Hampshire, we have our Granite Advance loans, which include a student loan, a parent loan, and a refinancing loan. And those all come with interest rate discounts for being New Hampshire families. But our customer experience team is super knowledgeable, not only about our own products, but about the private student loan world. So if you want to learn more about it and have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. There's no obligation to apply for our loan. We are here to help. We are here to help educate you and help you make the best decisions for you. And if along the way you decide that a Granite Advance or Invest in You loan might be a good option, we're happy to tell you more about that and guide you through that process as well. If you would like to get in touch with us, here is some of our main contact information, our main phone number. Find your direction at graniteadvance.org. We'll take you to our counseling team and you can book an appointment through our Calendly link. Again, appointments are available in person at our office in Concord or virtually. And keep an eye out for our outreach team at other events and schools and opportunities around the state because we are all over the Granite State and we would love to hear from you and hear how we can help. If you would like to submit some feedback about this presentation, you can scan that QR code and tell us what you thought. We really do read every single one, and we're always looking to improve and make sure that we are meeting the community's needs and providing useful information. And if you would like to contact me directly, I'd love to hear from you. Again, I'm Shelby, and you can reach me at smuso@graniteadvance.org. And with that, I will open up the floor for questions.
Oh, thank you, Shelby. That's a lot of information.
I know, and I talk fast, so please feel free if you have a question that is just, can you go back to this one slide? Happy to review.
Right. So I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but I do want to remind people that we do have resources at www.aarp.org/money. And also, if you want to look at this presentation again, I have put in the chat the link to our AARP New Hampshire YouTube channel. And also, Shelby has her contact information on the slide in front of you. So please feel free to contact her because it really looks like she can guide you through the maze of getting financial aid for your college student.
Yeah, I love this, y'all, if you couldn't tell. So I'm the nerd that's willing to help. And if I don't know something, I'll get you to someone who does. Also, if you have a question that you'd like to not ask to everybody, there is an option in your chat box. If you click on the two and there's a little blue box and scroll down to hosts and panelists, then only Mary and I will see that question and happy to answer it out loud without saying who you are. Put this slide back up for a little bit.
Right. Because that's all the great contact information as well as the QR code for evaluating the presentation.
That's right.
I still, okay. So I hope you were all able to jot down Shelby's contact information. Again, if you don't have the resources to do it tonight, we will have this recording on our YouTube channel. The link is in the chat. Shelby, I want to thank you for presenting this information to us this evening. And for anyone who is interested in anything that AARP does have for upcoming events, you can visit us on our website at www.aarp.org/nh/events, and that will take you to local events. And if you're, I know we do have some people here across country, you can still get a list of what AARP does offer for events at www.aarp.org. And you could always put slash and your state abbreviation, and it will bring up what's local to you. So thank you very much. And Shelley did put in her contact information as well into the chat. The chat.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure. It was an honor to present to all of you. Big fan of the organization, and thank you for having me. I'll go ahead and stop sharing.